Hello everyone, good afternoon. Dressed up for today. I'm wearing my Brokaw t-shirt and my Harris tweed jacket and my tam. Doing some songs from Scotland and some tunes from Ireland today. Today is day 47 of the quarantine tunes, Irish quarantine tunes, and hey, gonna have a fun time. Let's see, gonna start out with a very old reel, popular among the fiddlers, and this goes out to all three of my selections today that I'm doing for fiddling come from I learned versions from Kevin Burke, the great Sligo fiddler. And in fact, he recorded an album that I love called If the Cap Fits, which you of course can't read because we are backwards again because of a Facebook glitch. But it says If the Cap Fits, and he's wearing a cap there and playing his fiddle when he was much younger. So I'm wearing a cap in his honor and in honor of the Irish and the Scots and their fiddle players. So here we go with The Bunch of Keys. Bunch of Keys goes out to Kevin Burke and Michael Coleman and all the great fiddle players. That was in G Mixolydian, a very kind of old, haunting kind of modal key. So, all right. The next song is one that Darrell sings. It comes from Scotland, from Glasgow, and it's called Nancy Whiskey, or also the Calton Weaver. Calton is an area, it was a village, it was a weaving community. It's now been incorporated into greater Glasgow. And of course, people from Glasgow are called Glaswegians, which I love to say. All right, so this is a song about the dangers of whiskey. So I didn't have a Scotch single malt, but I did have one from Ireland here. This is called Connemara from Irish single malt whiskey. So this is all about a poor weaver who falls prey to the charms of Nancy Whiskey. So, and this goes out to my bandmate Darrell, who does a great job of singing this song. So. Calton weaver. I am a rash and a roving blade. I've got silver in my pockets. I'll go and follow the roving trade. Whiskey, whiskey, Nancy, whiskey, 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 Nancy, oh. As I walked into Glasgow City, Nancy whiskey I chanced to smell. I walked in, sat down beside her. It's 7 long years since I loved her well. Oh, whiskey, whiskey, Nancy, whiskey, 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 Nancy, oh. The more I kissed her, the more I loved her. Oops. The more I kissed her, the more I loved her. The more I kissed her, the more she smiled. I forgot my mother's bidding, and Nancy soon had me beguiled. Oh, whiskey, whiskey, Nancy, whiskey, 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 Nancy, oh. 'Twas very early the next morning, finding myself in a strange bed. I went to rise, but I was not able, for Nancy's charms, they held my head. Oh, Nancy, whiskey, 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 Nancy, whiskey, 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 oh. Back to Calton weaving, I'll surely make those shuttles fly. I'll take more at Calton weaving than ever I did at the roving trade. Oh, whiskey, whiskey, Nancy, whiskey, 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 Nancy, oh. Call your weavers, your Calton weavers, all your weavers where'er you be. Beware of whiskey, Nancy, whiskey, it'll ruin you like she ruined me. Oh, whiskey, whiskey, Nancy, whiskey, 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 Nancy, oh. Whiskey, whiskey, Nancy, whiskey, 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 Nancy, oh. All right, it's getting a little hot wearing this Harris tweed. So this comes from Scotland, Harris. I'm not exactly sure where it is. I believe it's an island up in the north part of, it says, in the Hebrides, in the outer Hebrides of Scotland. So unfortunately, like I said, it's all backwards, but that's my Harris tweed. I don't think I bought this new. I think I got it at St. Vinny's or somewhere, but hey, it serves the purpose. So keeps you warm, and it's made of wool, so it actually is somewhat waterproof. And in Ireland and Scotland, you definitely need that because it rains almost every day. They don't say it rains. They just say, oh, it's kind of a soft day. All right, I hope everybody's having a great day. In my effort to give a shout out today to two things. Well, the Brokaw, of course, because it was the place we played for 13 years. So the venues that we got to play in, the instruments, I'm going to talk briefly about two of my fiddles or violins, and then also about two great fiddlers, Kevin Burke, who I just mentioned, and then the great Michael Coleman, considered, according to this, you won't be able to read it very well because it'll be backwards, but it's Ireland's most influential traditional musician of the 20th century. So Michael Coleman from Sligo, there's a picture of him with all his records and his medals and his fiddle. He was really quite the character. He left Sligo and emigrated to New York and got recorded there. Here's a picture of him actually playing that fiddle. There we go. So yeah, here's Michael Coleman. Yeah, what a guy. The story is he grew up in Gurcheen, in a small community in County Sligo, and there was a piper that played in that community who also was a blacksmith and would play at the forge. And so Michael, as a young boy, would go and sit and listen to the piper in the forge, and then eventually learn to play the fiddle based on the piping of, I don't know that man's name. But I love the idea that it was in the forge where he forged his identity and his fiddle style. And he was amazing because he was kind of like Mozart. He was just a genius. He would, every single time he played the tune, it sounded differently because he would improvise and add things, and he played super fast and super lively. Unfortunately, he died penniless, like many others, on the streets of New York in 1945. Before anybody had become, famous, like we revere him today as kind of the god of the Irish fiddlers. Legend has it, of course, there's always a story with the Irish, is that he had a brother, an older brother, who was also a fiddle player who did not emigrate, never got recorded, and of course was actually the better of the two, and we'll never know. So, in honor of those fiddlers, and in honor of this lovely violin that I get to play, this one that I'm playing right here was made very recently, in 2011, in Mittenwald, in Germany, right on the border with Austria, where there's been generations and hundreds of years of famous violin makers. And I would like to go there sometime. My friend Brian went there and got to meet the maker, Anton Sprenger, who's from a family of violin makers. And it's a lovely instrument that my wife Sandy bought for me, so I'm pretty darn lucky to have it. It's got a wonderful sound. Anton Sprenger, 2011 in Mittenwald, Germany. Quick story about when Brian went there. Brian also plays the fiddle. He plays a lot of Quebecois music up from the north of us. And he jammed with Anton and the fellows in that town that play bluegrass and old-timey music. So I think maybe he wouldn't mind that I play fiddle music on it instead of classical music. So, so here's some polkas to liven things up here a little bit. I've got 3 polkas. Let's see. The first one is called Jer the Rigger, or Jer, J-E-R, is sometimes a nickname for Jerry, or Gerald. Second one is known as the Maid of Ardagh. And Ardagh, I looked it up. I think it's somewhere in Kerry. And then the last one has a great name. It's called Mickey Chewing Bubblegum. Sometimes also called Bill Sullivan's. And that one was written by a fellow named Cuz Teahan in 1915. So it's over 100 years old. Mickey Chewing Bubblegum. Now, the middle one that I'm going to do, Maid of Ardagh, actually I just found out has words. But I'll tell you about that after I play them. So. 3 polkas for you. Really fun ones to play. I just remembered a story about the last one. I used to play in a band back in the early 90s called the Drones, named after the part of the pipes that plays the chords or the sustained notes, and not after like worker bees. But there was 4 of us in the band. It was Barb on the flute, and Tim on guitar, and Turner on the harp and penny whistle and accordion, and then me on the fiddle. And we used to do those polkas, and we played at a place called Cafe Europa that's up near the square at the corner of King and Wilson or whatever it is there. It's now called the Tipsy Cow, and many years ago it was actually an Irish bar called Clancy's before I moved here. So we had a little shtick that we do where we'd have that set of tunes ready, and we'd have somebody standing by the door where the light switch was, and it had a fader on it. And I would attach a bike light to my arm, to my hand, wrist, where my fiddle is, where my bow is. And I would turn that on, and then we would play those tunes, and they would get faster and faster. And as they got faster, the lights would dim until it was dark, and it would just be watching my arm and my bow hand with the bike light on it. So it was quite fun and silly. All right, so I was going to tell you about Come to the Ceili, the Maid of Ardagh. So I have a friend that I used to run with who's a stats professor here at University of Wisconsin, Michael Newton. And he grew up in Cape Breton Island in Nova Scotia in a place called Sydney, way up on the north part of the island. And he used to come and see my bands play, like Far From Home, and we would do this polka, and he'd say, there's words to that. I remember as a kid, like, hearing that. And I said, could you find him? And he said, yeah, maybe I'll ask my sister or something. Well, we never found the words. And for many years, I've Googled them or tried to find them in different songbooks and things, and I always was looking for a song because I thought it was called Come to the Ceili. Come to the Ceili, come with me. Well, it turns out it's called Let's Have a Ceili, come with me. And I was looking for the wrong thing. And somehow, by happenstance or serendipity, last night when I was looking for it, I was able to find it. So I'm just going to sing one part of it. Let's have a ceili, come with me, dance to the music, merry, merry music. Let us make the rafters sing, let's have a real old Highland fling. Let's have a ceili, come with me, dance to the music, merry, merry music. Come, let us make the rafters sing, let's have a real old Highland fling. All right, so that goes out to my friend Michael Newton. I finally found the words, so pretty exciting for me, and after looking for them for the last 25 or 30 years. So, all right, so those were polkas. What's next? A song, a Scottish song. I did say it's a mix of Scottish songs and Irish tunes today. So the first one was Nancy Whiskey up from Glasgow, and this next one is a very, very old song, Barbara Allen, that originated in Scotland and has been collected as a child ballad and a rude ballad. It's not as old as some of the other traditional songs, dates probably to the 1600s. But what is interesting about it is that there have been, by far, according to Wikipedia, more versions collected of this song than any other traditional English, Scottish, or Irish song. So it's everywhere, and there are so many different versions, different melodies, different words, different stories. I had no idea how ubiquitous this song is until when I was looking about it last night, and it referenced a play called Dark of the Moon. I was in Dark of the Moon in high school in our theater guild at Ann Arbor Pioneer. I played the Southern Preacher. And I had no idea that the entire play was based on Barbara Allen, and it's everywhere. So I can't really do this with a fiddle because it's an old song and it needs to be a cappella, but I do need it for the first note. So here we go. I'm going to do my version of Barbara Allen. So. There we go. I think I need a sip of water. Thanks for listening everybody. This is day 47. There's only 3 more days before I'm going to stop and take a break on day 50 on Mother's Day. In Scarlet Town, where I was born, there was a fair maid dwellin', made many a youth cry well-a-day. Her name was Barbary Ellen. 'Twas in the merry month of May, when green buds they were swellin'. Sweet William came from the west country and courted Barbary Ellen. He sent his servant unto her to the place where she was dwellin'. Said, my master's sick, bids me call for you, if your name be Barbary Ellen. So slowly, slowly got she up, and slowly came she nigh him. And all she said when she passed his bed was, young man, I think you're dyin'. Oh yes, I'm sick and very sick, and death is in me dwellin', if I can't have the love of one, the love of Barbary Ellen. Oh, don't you remember in yonder town, when we were at the tavern, you drank a health to the ladies round, and you slighted Barbary Ellen. Oh yes, I remember in yonder town, when we were at the tavern, I drank a health to the ladies round, gave my love to Barbary Ellen. So lightly tripped she down the stairs, and she heard those church bells tollin', and each bell seemed to say as it rang, hard-hearted Barbary Ellen. Oh mother, go make my bed, and make it long and narrow. Sweet William died for me today, I'll die for him tomorrow. They buried Barbara in the old churchyard, they buried sweet William nigh her, and out of his grave grew a red, red rose, and out from hers a briar. They grew and grew up the old church wall, till they could grow no higher, and at the top wound a lover's knot, the red rose and the briar. That's Barbary Ellen, a very old Scottish song for you. All right. What else do I have to say about today? Well, so I want to talk about the fiddles that I play. I mentioned this one, my newest one, from Mittenwald, Germany. I also have one that was made by a German maker, but in the U.S., and that's the one actually right here behind me. This other one is Maid's fiddle that came from China. They make some actually really good ones there for a reasonable price. But this one over here was made in Detroit, Michigan in 1897 by a German maker named Adolf Krug. I looked him up in the big book of violin makers that my friend Brian has, and I was able to find him. And, was a prolific maker for a while. Unfortunately, so this was 1897 when he made this. Unfortunately, later in life, he was not able to make a living from violin making, and it was in the era of industrialization and mass production, and he actually later in life worked on Henry Ford's assembly line. And if that isn't a metaphor for what's wrong with history and culture in our country and industrialization, it's that somebody who can make something as beautiful and wonderfully sounding as that violin and then ended up working on an assembly line making cars. So, but I love playing it still. So. All right, I got time for one more. It's kind of a sad tune. It's called the Lonesome Jig, and it's got a great feel to it, and I learned this also from the playing of Kevin Burke. Hope everybody's doing well, and hope that we're all going to get through this okay and come out deciding that we need a better healthcare system, a better government, better community supports, and things to make us all healthy and happy, and I hope music is part of that, and social gatherings. So, all right. I put on a new A string, so. There we go. The Lonesome Jig, also called Maguire's Kick or the Rolling Waves. So. The Lonesome Jig goes out to everybody that is socially isolated and feeling a little lonesome and needing the company of our friends and family and community. All right, love y'all. Hope you enjoyed the music. I'll be back tomorrow. All there is left is Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and then it'll be day 50. And I'll have done 100 songs and over 200 and something jigs and reels and hornpipes and polkas. And I've really enjoyed doing this, but I'm going to be ready for a break. So thanks for listening. Take care, and I'll see you tomorrow.